Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Math with Mr. W. This morning, we're going to be talking about warm-ups. My entire career of teaching, which was a long time, spanning from 1969-70, all the way to 2010. It's a lot of years. One of the things that I always believed in, and I always did, was warm-ups. And it gets the kids going with the idea of math. Because a lot of times they're sitting there and doing all kinds of classes like English and history and art, and they're not prepared for their math class. We want to get them on their math side. We want to get their math side of their mind opened up and ready to go. So a little warm up. And it doesn't take but maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3. But it just helps the brain going. All right, now the first one I have here is find the score. Now, I've done this in the lower grades as well, and this is bowling. Most of your kids, by the time they were in 5th grade, have probably gone bowling for a party or for their birthday or something, but they've gone to the bowling alley. Now, they go to the bowling alley, and guess what? A computer takes care of their score. And growing up, no computer took care of my score. I took care of my score because there were no computers taking care of my score. There were no computers. So we had things that we had to do ourselves, and we had to know the rules. Well, there's only 3 basic rules. The first rule is if you have less than 10 on the 2 times that you roll the ball down the alley on your turn, you just add the points. So if someone gets 8 or 7, maybe only 5 on the 2 rolls, you just add 5 to the previous score. I remember one night my mom and dad used to bowl in bowling leagues, and so I was introduced to bowling when I was really young. My mom came home and my brothers and I were sitting there, and she said, "You won't believe this, guys. You won't believe this." What? One of the persons on the other team rolled an 11. An 11. An 11. How'd you roll an 11? Well, that's like, you have to. In bowling, that's not bad. That's not bad. That's incredibly bad. I mean, she's thrown the ball 20 times down the alley and managed to knock over 11 pins. So that's not very good. Most of the balls end up in it's called the gutter. Anyway, I do this for one reason. Adding up a bowling score helps us to think quickly in tens. And it helps us to have good common sense about numbers. And we move quickly. We can move quickly forward in tens. And then, you know what? Our brain actually helps to move backwards the same way. And when we get to the integers, which you're starting to do this year, when we have the opposites, we also can do the same things. So let me show you what I'm talking about. If you have less than 10, you just add the points to the previous score. So if the previous score was 25 and you got 9 on 2 rolls, your next score would be 34 because you just add 25 plus 9, you get 34. Now, I got was here a sample game. Okay, and it tells you what to do down here. B says spare. A spare means you had rolled the ball twice and you knocked over all the pins in 2 rolls. And it's marked down like this with a single line. Even a computer will mark it down just like that. Okay, so you mark it down like that. And what you do is you get 10 points for that, plus what you received on the next roll. So you can't score it till what you see on the next roll. Now up here you see a 7. So we're going to add 17 to the previous score we have. Okay. But now we have to look at what happened also with a strike. A strike means I roll the ball down once and I knocked over all 10 pins with one roll. That's called a strike. And a strike, we get all 10. That's all 10. You get 10 points plus the next two balls. What you got on the next two balls. So those are your three things you have to think about. And so let's kind of go through this little game here and we'll see how this happens. So the first frame, the person got a strike. So now we're going to have to wait for the next two rolls to see what we can score. We can't put a score in here because we know he's got 10 or she's got 10, but we don't know what the total's going to be because we don't know what they've gotten on the next two rolls. So now their turn comes up next, and the next time, in the next two rolls, they get a spare. That means they got two rolls and they knocked down 10 pins. So in the first frame, they're going to have 20 because they had 10 plus the 10 they got here. So they get 20. So now we can't score this because according to a spare, we have 10 plus the next ball. 10 plus the next ball. What did I get on the next ball? Well, here we see the next ball, the person on the next turn rolled and knocked down 7 on the first ball. Well, 10 plus 7 is 17, but now that automatically makes 10, 20, 37. So they've got 37 here. So now we have to wait, see if they knock down the other 3 pins in this game. Oh, but they only got 2 of them. So now they have a total of 9, which is less than 10. You just add points. So now we have 9 here. So we just add the points to the 37, which gives them 46. 46. So I have 46 after 3 frames. Now, this is a 10-frame game, but look what happens in the 4th and 5th frame. Now, going back to the strike. In the strike, you get all 10. Now, on one, you get all 10 the first time. That means they have to wait for the next 2 rolls. Well, if the guy gets or girl gets a strike here, and then they get a strike here, we have to wait for the next roll because that's only one more roll. So we have to wait to see what they had on the first roll here before we can add all the way back there. And this is where adding by tens really becomes important because we got 46, 56, 66, and whatever they're going to come up here first. And we get 8. So 56, 66, 74. So that means immediately they have 74 here. 74. So you get 74 in this frame, but we can't add anything here. We want to see what the total was here. But they get a spare, so they got 10 total. So that means they get 10 plus the total 10 here. That makes 94. We can't add on here, though, because it's a spare again. So we have to wait till what they got on the next roll because that's the rule. So that gives them 104 plus 7. So you're adding by tens. 104, 114, 121. So 121. And again, the individual does not get all 10. So once they only get 9, then we're just going to add. So 121 and 9 is 130. So after 7 frames, they have 130. So now we have 10, In the eighth frame, they get a strike. Oh, we have to wait. Wait for 2 rolls. And they get a spare. So that gives them 10 on 2 rolls. So that means this is 150. And again, this we have to wait for the first roll. They got a strike. So that's 170. Now in the 10th frame, you'll notice there are 3 spots. There are 3 spots. Because in the 10th frame, your last frame, if you roll a strike first, you just can't add 10. You have to see what else is going to happen. So you're given the chance to roll the ball 3 times. And in this case, the person rolled a strike first, but then got a less of a, let's say they got 8 and then got a spare. So this could have been an 8 and then got a spare. So they rolled the ball 3 times because after a strike, you have to see what they get on the next 2 rolls before you can score. And that's the 3rd rule. So this becomes 170 plus 20 more, which is 190. So the score for the game is 190. Now, at first, your students will probably be slow at this, and I'm sure they will be. But after a while, they'll get quicker and quicker and quicker. And that's the idea. You give them an arbitrary scoring, an arbitrary game of spares and strikes and or things that aren't total spares or strikes, and you give them the chance. You say, go and see how fast they do it. It's just warming their minds up, getting them ready for that class that you're about to teach. All right, that's one that I want you to take a look at. That's really a great thing. It works really well. The second one is called, I'm looking for 2 numbers. Now, this is going to be a real benefit for you folks that are having trouble with your students and their factoring. I'm looking for 2 numbers whose product is. So, whose product is. So, whose product is. So, you say to them, whose product is. And you say 25. Well, the only numbers are going to be in their head, 1 times 25 and 5 times 5. So it's going to be real easy. Then you say whose sum is 26. Now, half the class, or more than half the class, is going to forget that 1 times 25. They're only going to think 5 times 26. But some are going to raise their hand and know it's going to be 1 and 25. Those are the 2 factors that multiply together to make 25 that add up to 26. But what also is really, really great here is that you can now use those opposites. You can say, I'm looking for 2 numbers whose product is the opposite of 24, whose product is the opposite of 24. Now, 24 has 8 times 3, 12 times 2, 6 times 4. 1 times 24. But which one of those terms is going to be a negative? Which one's going to be a positive? And that's up to you. You're the one who's doing this, who's going to be in charge of what the solution is, whose sum is the opposite of 23. And again, the half the class or more has gone, the opposite of 23? How's that possible? Well, 1 and the opposite of 24. But as soon as you say, I'm looking for 2 numbers whose product is the opposite of 24, they should know that 1 is positive and 1 has to be negative. You're also going over these concepts. You're rebuilding these concepts, these ideas in their mind. And if you said their sum is -2, that's even better. Now, the other one, mental math. Mental math. Can they multiply in their head? Like, can you say to them, 99 times 36? And they can do that in their head. Now, you're probably thinking, how could my students do 99 times 36? But you've already done distributive property. You've already done opposites. You already know that 99 is 100 minus 1. So this has to be 3,600 minus 36. So it has to be 3,564. It's a great mental math. And there's another one that also that I do a lot of is just following along, listening to what you're saying. Start with 5. Add 5 times 10 minus 9 divide by 7. Now, first of all, you divide by 7 is going to probably throw a lot of students off because you got them to 91. Divide by 7. Oh, but 7 goes into 91, doesn't it? Yeah, 13 times. Everybody knows that. Or do they? But the bottom line is, you can play this game with little series of numbers to get them from the beginning to the end, but it helps them to pay attention. You're getting them to pay attention to what you are saying. You have to say it over again, maybe 2 or 3 times. But the important part is that you are getting them to listen. And one of the things that you can do is you can even create patterns within this. You create patterns. Start with 3, add 3, times 3 minus 3, divide by 3. So you have all 3s. But then you try the same thing with 4s and 5s and 6s. And then you might say, what would the answer be if the first number was a 7? And what's going on with them? Are they listening to not only to what you're saying, are they listening to the answers? Did they catch the pattern? So there's a lot of ways that you can find to warm up the minds of those wonderful students you have in front of you. You have a great year. I hope you have a great time. And I'll see you next time on Math with Mr. W.